Hi there, and welcome to the Own Your Expertise interview series. I'm Emily Crookston, owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD. I'm the ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks, and I love helping experts with big ideas get those ideas out of their heads and into the world. Today, I'm sitting down with Elizabeth Dranitzke. She's the owner of Photopia. Elizabeth is a photographer living and working in Washington, D.C. She takes professional headshots and portraits of families and women. And I'm really excited that Elizabeth has decided to step in front of the camera today to speak with me. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about who you work with and what you do.
Good morning, Emily. Nice to see you. Well, you summed it up. I started out about 18, 19 years ago working just with families, and I have said for years that my clients have grown up with me. So I started out photographing pregnant women and babies when that was more my world. And as those children have grown up, I have photographed their parents and their neighbors and them as high school seniors. And in the past few years, I've shifted my focus to more professional portraits for headshots, as you said, and portraits of women where I partner with a makeup artist and we do fun portrait pop-ups for women.
Yeah, I really love that aspect of it. So you, with the portraits of women, you focus on like helping them sort of get comfortable in their own skin, right?
Yeah, and I think being confident and natural and owning it, and by doing these portrait parties, it just makes it fun and puts everybody at ease. And I think that there's a line that came from another photographer, I didn't invent it, that exists in photos as a hashtag, and I think it really applies strongly to women in our culture, and especially mothers, where you focus on everybody else, or maybe you're the photographer in your household, whether or not you have children, and we sort of become invisible. But yes, it is really building confidence, and yes, I'm usually on the other side of the camera, but I have put myself in front of the camera as part of it as well.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into this next question. How would you say you translate your expertise for others? I really liked the answer that you gave me in the writing here, because it was an interesting angle that I hadn't considered. So I'm always thinking about, as a writer, translating a big picture idea into something your audience understands. But I really liked your take on this. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, right, I hadn't thought about that corollary with your work where you're translating, which we tend to think of as written or verbal.
Right.
And I think of it visually.
Right.
But I think that it's funny because I think I've become more aware of this through feedback I've had from people. And I think that a lot of times we'll say at the portrait pop-up events, people say like, oh, that was really fun. Or even if I'm alone doing a headshot for them, I don't know, at least 75% of the people will say, I mean, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but I hate being photographed, or I look terrible in photos, or, my eyes get squinty, or, do you see this, like this side is different from this side, and think like no face is even. I remember learning that in high school drawing classes. No one has a symmetrical face. And so, I tell people that, and I think that I tend to joke around a lot, and I think that puts people at ease. So, and I will joke and say things like, oh, it's better than having a shot. Like it's easy. Like it's really no big deal. So, but I've realized that even really in the past 5 years, that because for so long I was so focused on families and kids where that kind of playfulness just happens anyway because you're with children, but that adults need that as well. And that I think, and people want direction. They ask and say, I don't know what to do. And I've realized that I need to go in there strong and say, okay, great. All right. You need to tuck your shirt in a little bit more. Your guys always get that thing where their lines, if they're wearing a tie, like their lines in their button down shirt. And of course, pre-pandemic, I would adjust them. Now I have to just direct them. But, and then say, okay, stand like this. Okay. Shift your weight. Okay. Take a deep breath. And I'll say, even things like, I get like this when I'm holding my camera. Like, okay, wow, let's all just, okay, take a deep breath. And I think that by putting them at ease, and it's almost like the photography becomes secondary, and we can be talking, and I have to be careful not to get too distracted talking. But or asking them about themselves. But I think that all of that goes to say that those are ways of connecting with people and putting them at ease. And I think that even more, not to say the photography is not important, because of course it is, but I feel like that becomes even a bigger part of the experience. And they say it's helpful, if I say, do you have branding colors? And okay, so your website has orange, you probably shouldn't wear all orange, but you could have a pocket square of orange, or a big orange necklace, or some way to pull it all together.
Yeah, I mean, those are such great tips, and it shows that you have this eye that you've honed over however many years of taking photographs. And I mean, that's the value of hiring a professional photographer instead of taking a selfie and like putting that up as your headshot on LinkedIn or whatever.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, for myself, like I'm the one who would say that to you as a photographer. Well, I always feel awkward when the camera comes out, and I don't know how to stand, and I don't know what to do with my hands. And,
hands, that's the worst. No, to do with hands.
But it's a really good thing when you have a photographer who can ease your nerves about that stuff, because if you don't relax, you are going to look stiff. Like you can see that. People can see that in a photo. So it's really important to have that comfort level and the time to relax into a photo shoot, right? And it's not just stand here and click, like when you were in school and you had your school picture taken, right? It's
yes, yeah, right.
The lasers in the back in the 80s. Right.
Yes,
so it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and actually it's a time thing. I was just thinking too that a lot of people I've photographed who've had a corporate headshot experience at their offices where they have, somebody come in and it is like school photos, and it's like, okay, next. And there's not a moment to relax or talk a little bit. And, and you need more than a few minutes. And it kind of makes me go back to your first question about translating. And so that it's always learning, but I think that idea of what we can in each of us in our professions translate for other people and provide that service that, I can't translate the way you do. And I don't know if you can translate the way I can, but and like I said before too, there's always practicing, always learning. I mean, every single shoot I learn something, or I realize like, I really got to pay attention to X. I mean, it's photographing recently with a mask on.
Right.
And it's not quite hot here. I'm sure it is there as well.
Yeah.
And my glasses fog up, and realizing I have all these other factors that I don't have practice with, where they're just sort of, it's subtle in a way, 'cause it's like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Like, why was that shot blurry? And realizing, well, it's like 108 degrees. I'm sweating. I can't breathe, and my glasses are fogged up. And so how do I shift? How do I tweak and learn and accommodate? And
we're all learning. We're all back to square one in a lot of ways. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I've enjoyed sitting down with you. Yeah. Yes. Can you please tell us where we can learn more about you?
Well, I have a website, which is Photopia DC, like District of Columbia.com. And then I am on all the usual channels, Facebook and LinkedIn. You can look for my name if you can spell Dranitzke. And really to see what I'm up to every day, I'm busy on Instagram, and that's at Eliz Photo, which is F-O-T-O. So ELIZFOTO.